Welcome to the Secret Keepers Podcast with your host, Kareen Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Kareen.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers Podcast. Today, I have as my guest, Matt Schmidt, and you all are in for a treat. Matt, tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks, Kareen. What I do now, I focus on quantum healing, and what that is, I'm guiding people using a deep state of relaxation or trance, where we can get to the bottom of why stuff is happening, why people are experiencing what they're experiencing, and great for this podcast, letting their secrets come out so they don't have to hold them in anymore. So, just beautiful how this parallels into kind of the stuff we're going to be diving into. So, thanks for having me on.
Oh, so thanks so much for being here. Yes, exactly. I have been the recipient of your work, and so I can attest to how effective it is. And it's not even like you just don't know that anything is really going on, and so that's the most amazing part of it. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about secrets and how they affect our bodies, and have you experienced that yourself?
I have, and I kind of went back and forth when you told me about this podcast. I'm like, oh, I was thinking about these deep, dark secrets like things that happened in the past, and then I'm like, that's not the stuff that everyone knows those things, but the ones that I usually find, or that I think we should talk about today, are the ones that we like keep from ourselves. Those secret parts of us that we try to hide, that we try to shut down, that we suppress. That's the day-to-day stuff. That's what's really like dragging people down, and they're so subtle we don't think about them. So I know I thought about this over and over, and I had all these good ones I was going to bring up, and then that wasn't what came up. It was these all these parts of us that we like try to hide from, or that we shut down, or that we don't share, or that we don't expose. And they're not secrets per se, but we keep them hidden and we keep them in the shadows. And all those things suppress our like soul's true essence and who we are at our core. And people, it sucks the life out of them. They end up depressed, they end up with anxiety, they end up with all these physical things because of these parts of them that they shut down. So I'll save you all some time right away. You didn't come here to be anyone else. You came to be you. And when you fully embrace all those parts of you, then you can come into this like whole being that's just loving life and living life to the fullest, and not feeling sick and not feeling anxious, not feeling depressed. Like, pretty cool stuff.
Oh, so it's so interesting that you bring that up. So I just gave a talk about this uh, because for so much of my adult life, I hid a lot of myself, the authentic self, because I felt that societal norms expected me to be a certain way. One, because I was female, one, because I was a mother, right? Another, because I was a wife. And so there were these expectations of me to present as a certain way. And it came to a head 20 years ago, me sitting on a bathroom floor wanting to take my life because I was like, I can't do this. I can't keep pretending to be something that I'm not, and stuffing down how I feel about things. And um, that pattern, repeated itself for quite a while, until I was able to finally silence the inner critic and allow myself to be the sensual woman that I am, without being concerned about who gets to see it, right? Or, just being, I always say the wild child, but, you know, just really allowing that to come out. So thank you for mentioning that, because it is, we see a lot of it, right? That people are afraid, like the imposter syndrome comes out. If people really knew, X about me, they wouldn't like me. They would reject me. And essentially what I was doing was just rejecting myself before anybody else could, right? Which is easier that way. It was like, well, uh, here we go. We're just gonna, put the big X mark on you, and then we don't have to worry about it. And it was so unhealthy. And I have watched you. I mean, you come into environments in communities where people have really never heard of quantum healing, and you have just such an amazing impact, like because you get your presence, and then people are really curious about what you do. So can you tell the audience a little bit about it? Because if they've never heard of quantum healing or experienced it, they might be like, what are they talking about?
It's one of those things that's like hard to describe, but just real briefly, like I usually talk to a person for a little while, get kind of a feel of where they're at. And just like in your experience too, you usually have people prepare a list of like things they want to address in their session. And that kind of gets the process rolling. In this quantum space, we're working in like this field of all the possibilities where people can shift to these other versions of themselves and like experience a different reality, experience life in a different way. Most of the work that we're doing together is figuring out what's keeping them stuck on the experience they're having right now. And it is those secrets, those parts of them that they've shut down or that they're afraid to explore or to access. And in our work, I'm guiding them through unlocking those parts of them, and so that it can free them up to shift however they want. So usually they're in like a deeper state of trance, like a relaxation, like a kind of like a guided meditation, like one-on-one, but it's usually like a couple hours. It's a little bit longer, but we're going through all those layers. Like if you have a fear of change, guess what? All of this is change. So that's going to pull you right back to what's familiar and shut that part of you down again because you have that fear. So that's why it's important to kind of go through all those layers of things. And I've learned to be thorough in the process because I'm looking for results with people. And if you don't address some of those things, it's like, I don't know, they're just going to rubber band back right into what they know. So, yeah.
The ego brain wants to keep us safe, right? So that part of us, our conscious, brain, like right, it's doing its job. It wants to keep us safe, and so right, it's just going to keep you back into that little. Well, no, you got to stay in the box. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not safe, right? And then there's when you can get down into the other layers, if you will, and access them. There's where you can make the change and have it be. Um, I don't want to say permanent because I don't think anything is permanent, but have it be more long lasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so they don't end up just recreating it because you can do all this work, but if you don't figure out, well, why is this happening? How are they gonna do this after today? They're just gonna go right back to what they know because it's safe. It's even if it's uncomfortable, it's still comfortable and
Yeah.
familiar. So
Yeah. So can you share with me too, like some of the things that you've seen throughout the years that you've been doing this, um, like big changes? Because I know recently I read of something, and that had to do with the thyroid.
um,
And so, I would like for you to share with the audience. Because like I was like, this is some pretty cool stuff.
yeah, and it's cool because I'm doing very little of this. Each person's healing themselves, so it's so empowering because people realize like how much of their life they do have control over, and I kind of love the way that things come through like that. So, I had yeah, the one you're mentioning, the lady had a complete like thyroidectomy. She had her thyroid removed in like I don't know, like 12 years ago. And in the session, she figured out what she was suppressing, it was her voice. She was suppressing her voice and um, not speaking up, not speaking her truth, and not speaking her. I don't know I don't remember the exact reasons, but in the session, it was explained that it was fine now and that she was just going to grow another one. I'm like, really? 2 months later, her thyroid's back. So, what we're capable of is so much more than probably most of us realize. And these are like normal people. These aren't like yogis that went and sat in a cave and like, these are actual people that are doing this. So, when we shut down those parts of us, so hers was shutting down her voice, not speaking her truth, and then when she expressed that, then her body could shift. And I like from based on other results and stuff and kind of how this healing works, she shifted to a version of her that never had it removed in the first place. I'm like, what? So it's a little confusing. I'm going to take a step back there because that's kind of a lot to digest. But in like quantum theory, there's an infinite number of versions of you that exist simultaneously, and the one that you're experiencing is the one that you are the frequency or vibration of. So similarly, the all the radio stations are playing right now. You can't perceive of them, you can't hear them, you can't experience them until you're dialed into a certain station. So in simplest terms, she just changed a channel. Like, um, and with some of the other ones, like there was a person who came to a workshop that I did, and she had metal pins and screws put in her arm 20 years ago where she injured it. In the group session, she wanted to focus on her shoulder. After the event, she ended up like pulling her bicep, went and had her arm x-rayed, and all the metal pins and screws were gone, and the bone was back in place.
What?
on,
Okay, I'm
on
gonna
a,
do that with my hips. I'm gonna do that with my hips because I had both my hips replaced. So I'm telling you. Okay, all right.
on a physical level, totally impossible. On a quantum level, is totally possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't always need to do that, but if there's still pain from that, if they're still experiencing something from that, like for her, it was advantageous to just shift to that version of her that never got injured in the first place. So usually most of the work comes in with, the secrets, unlocking the parts that we're like not dealing with or not addressing, that we're like hiding from. Like you're not going to avoid them, you're not going to outrun these, so you might as well face them head on. So um, really good analogy that happened the other day. I was walking the dog and with one of those retractable leashes, and I dropped the leash, and the dog heard it, turns around and starts running. And no matter how fast the dog ran, the leash was still faster. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a perfect analogy for us trying to like outrun these secrets or outrun these parts of us or outrun these issues. Like you're not going to get past them, just because time goes on. That doesn't just address them. Feel like, oh, time heals everything. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You gotta actually look at these things. You actually have to like address them, and then you can heal. But
Yeah, I think it's such a misconception. And, I recently heard that, from a medical perspective, we have such a shortage of doctors and nurses and healthcare providers, and that we're really moving into an era where it's advantageous if you are very self-aware and you can heal yourself, because that's what we're really looking at, because there just aren't the people out there that can be the ones to take care of you. And quite frankly, no one knows you better than you, right? So what how your body feels and what you feel in your body. And when you get really curious with yourself, you can start to recognize things, right? So through like journaling and really paying attention, it's like, oh, whenever I have this thought, so, that I have this thought, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling that in my middle back, or I have that thought and I feel it in my heart or in my throat, or right, you start to recognize it's like, oh, I get this little tinge or whatever. You start making note of that, then you can look to see um what that body part holds, right? And I did that with my mom. My mom had pancreatic cancer, and it was my first thing was I went to all of my energy people, and I'm like, what does the pancreas hold? Like, I give me all the information, I need it all. And joy, right? Joy. And it made so much sense. I went into all the medical journals when my mom was diagnosed, and I dug deep, and and I found that it takes 10 years for a pancreatic cancer to metastasize, and then spread elsewhere. So my mom had spread into her liver, giving her the stage 4. And when I looked back, my mom was diagnosed in October of 2021, and 10 years prior to that, my brother died. So for me, I see the link,
Yeah.
maybe it's not real, maybe it's not whatever, but I see it, so really having that understanding of what's going on here and getting curious. I find it very fascinating myself. For those who maybe are a little like, energy work is new, they're not really quite understanding, that what it means when you say, to go down like into a semi-hypnotic state. Um, like, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because maybe like um, somebody might be reluctant because maybe their spiritual background doesn't allow them, to dabble in things like that. So kind of maybe break it down more layman type thing so they can to know that it's really not scary and it's not intrusive and it's not anything black magic.
Sure. There's you don't need to believe in anything to for your body to feel. Like if you feel pain in your stomach, that's telling you something. People are looking for these like a lot of these medical things, even with some of the new like alternative stuff, like, oh hey, we have a $2 million biofeedback device. You are a biofeedback device. You are like the best one. And so it's being able to connect with yourself, being able to connect with your emotions. It doesn't matter what you believe for this stuff. So what I love about the work that I do is that I've worked with nuns and atheists, and it doesn't matter. They all connect to the same thing. They all get to the same space. And like the way I see it, all rivers lead to the ocean. So it really doesn't matter like what you believe, how you get there. It's what I find interesting is like there are way more similarities than differences. Everyone connects to the same thing. Everyone like, they have their own like different lens to kind of see the world through, but way more
Yeah.
similarities. We're all souls, we're all people, we all come from the same place, we're all trying to have these experiences and go through life. And so I don't know, what I kind of do is like connect with each person, and there's always a bridge between, them and like where I'm at, and I can always like kind of be that bridge for them so they can feel safe, so they can feel comfortable. The basic human needs are really pretty minimal and everyone has them. So it's like you can focus on that rather than these little small differences of what people think or what they believe. And perfect.
Yeah.
I'm at the point too where you could tell me like your back sore because you have a unicorn horn in it, and I'll be like, okay, well, start at the same place, like that's where we start then. So I think what I found, at least personally, when I was trying to do this, you talk about, oh, just tapping into your body, just like connecting to like getting into a meditative state. That was so hard for me. Like I was so disconnected from my body. I didn't want to feel like I was using like drugs and alcohol to kind of like numb and kind of stay away from stuff. I would keep myself busy. Like that was the other thing I would do. I'd work 100-hour weeks just so I didn't have to deal with my own problems. And then even at the end of that, I would focus on everyone else's stuff first because it was easier than addressing my own stuff. So I think the hardest part was shifting that focus to me and then kind of clearing some of the surface stuff out of the way that was like clouding that. It's hard to listen to your body when you have so much stuff going on or when there's like so much clouding your connection to that. It took me a while to have that like connection to myself, my inner self, my body, and now I'm really aware because like that's at the forefront all the time. Like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? I'll talk to my body. I used to get sick like 4 or 5 times a year because my body was like screaming at me and I wasn't listening. And I think I've been sick maybe once or twice in the last 6 years now. Like, and it's usually for a couple hours. It's like, and it's not even sick. It's like, okay, my body's like, oh, it needs to take a break, and I know how to listen to it, but it didn't start there. So some of the things you can do is finding a way to quiet your mind. I don't say like learning how to meditate because like I really struggled with that. And then once I was started, like I got to a point after like 9 months where I finally felt like I was able to like meditate. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already doing this. This is what I do when I'm driving. This is what I do when I'm standing in the shower. And so it's kind of finding your way. Where's your place to connect? Some people love walking in nature. Some people, some people like listening to music. Someone told me yesterday that they like doing the dishes. That's their place to. I asked her to stay at my house to meditate.
Okay. We're-
Yeah. Here, let me help you.
But yeah, what my best girlfriend, she used to love doing dishes. That was like her thing. She would hand wash everything, and I was like, no, that's just a no for me. But that goes, anyways. Um, I find that through my experience anyways with you and the work that we did together, um, it's been an interesting, journey moving forward because you have the experience for the day, and that in there can be that belief then that's um that's it, right? This is now I've dealt with it, we've had the session, and I will proceed on with my life. And what I found is quite the contrary. So that initial session was only the beginning of this journey. And can you just speak to that a little bit? Because you know what can people expect if they come in for a session with you?
I tell them not to expect anything, like because everyone is so different. And the next time you and I do work together, maybe it'll be completely different. So
Okay.
for my first one, it was like my whole world changed, and then it was like, but it was all stuff that I'd been working on. It was everything was just a few things are being held in place, and then I just got like blasted with stuff. But it was like it was so good. It was like it was weird to adjust to because like I had anxiety because I didn't have anxiety. Like it was such a weird spot to be in. So it took me, I was just like, what is this? Like it was so strange because it was such a different way to live. And after 40 years, you just kind of think that's how you are. So like even though I was doing some of this work on my own, it was like I was making these like marginal gains, and then all of a sudden it was like all at once, and I'm like, this is so strange. So it's like kind of getting my bearing, didn't know what to expect. And then since then I've had like other experiences, and it's been different every time. Sometimes it's been where I've like slept for like 12 hours a day for the next week, as my body adjusts and integrates. Um, and sometimes things when we like kind of rip the lid off something, all of a sudden like a bunch of old stuff comes up for us or stuff that we need to address. But sometimes it's just that being released, but also it can be like I kind of see them as little pop quizzes from like, oh, you had this experience. How are you going to dance with this time? How are you going to show up in this situation different? So they're little like tests for us based
Mhm.
on what we learn. So they're kind of just opportunities. They can also be just parts of us leaving. So I'll give you an example. This is just better with an example. So I did like a healing session, and then the next day I was mad for like a whole day. Like I couldn't shake it, every trick I knew. And like I don't really get mad anymore. So it was so like, I don't know, it was just so bizarre and I couldn't shake it. Finally, at the end of the day, I was in the shower and I heard, "You're jealous of the dog." We got a puppy and it was getting more attention than me, so I was mad. It was this little kid part of me that was being released, but I just had to like sit with it and just like recognize like that was part of me, and then it could go, uh,
Yeah.
or integrate, or however it happens. Like I was able to just accept that as just being like, okay, this is how I felt at one time, and but it was so weird. Like, why am I mad? I just had like the greatest experience, and then and then I feel like this afterwards. Like, but it was just because we unlocked that, and that was that part of the shift. So that eventually like evens out, as you get further out from your session, but. It's
Yes.
definitely a journey, and it's not a linear path. That's for sure. I've learned that. Like,
I think that's right. We tend to look at that. We want to be like from point A to point B and have it like I'm going to do this thing and then I'm going to, get these results, and it's going to take me over here, and that has not been my experience. Um, that has not been my experience with life in general. That there is no linear in mine. It's very jagged. Um, but I'm okay with that too, because every experience, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to learn, grow, and evolve. And your ability to, take people, into that subconscious layer and help them access their higher self, if for
yeah.
lack of better terminology for it, and have that conversation. I will tell you, because I listened back to mine, and it is the most fascinating thing to hear me talking and referring to myself in the third person. So I know that it's very fascinating because I was like, who's talking? um, And it was so interesting. And, because like with me, with, neuroencoding, like I know different techniques. I know, neuro linguistic programming techniques, and, I've been trained in subconscious work. And so like I have an awareness too of what's transpiring within this. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, so in terms of like um psychology and stuff like that, they kind of call it like the superconscious state in terms of like neuroscience. So like it's a little bit different than what we go through in our subconscious programming, but that higher self is that like kind of superconscious state. Um, and you kind of know this too, like if you're out there and you're like hearing this and you're feeling frustrated, like don't be so hard on yourself, don't beat yourself up. I was going to therapy like for years before doing this, and like going through this process one time was like 10 years of therapy for me. And so like I got to a point in my talk therapy where I'm like, I know the right answers and I don't feel any better. Like what is going on, like shouldn't I be better, like am I fixed yet? Like, and what I find with most people is there is a disconnect between what they know consciously and what the rest of them is experiencing, both physically, emotionally, mentally. And I will never be out of a job for this reason because, like, how do you change some of this stuff? Like, what happens when we go through like a trauma or like some emotional disturbance? Basically, our consciousness is like, well, this isn't fun. I don't want to be here. And it kind of steps aside. Well, then the event passes and we kind of come back in and we're like, well, why do I feel this way? It's like, okay, because this is lodged here. It's stuck here. That belief is stuck here. But how do you reaccess that to change it? So in the work that we both do, we're tapping back into that. So you're at that programming level where you can change that, where you do have like access to that. And a lot of times it's almost just a conscious choice at that level. Like, do I need to keep carrying this? Is this worth my happiness? Or I don't even believe that. It's not even mine, you know? And then we can affect that change. And then your whole outer reality changes because you made that change in the core. So it's pretty profound.
It really is. And it's worth it. Have you ever come across where it may be difficult to get a person into that state where you are able to have access?
Very rarely. The people that are showing up are ready. They want that change. I've had people where they didn't want to be here. Like, hey, here, fix my mom. And that's not fun for anyone. So I learned that early on. I make sure I don't let other people schedule appointments for people. I make sure that they want to do it. And like, because of that, because they're willing and ready on some level, we can get to that space. That looks so much different for each person. What that looks like when we get there, especially when we're working with like kids or like some of like people that have like a lot of walls up and blocks up, but it's going to be more on an energetic level sometimes. Or we have to keep in mind there's things happening on so many other levels, like a soul level, an energetic level, an emotional level, even like a physical level. Sometimes people like they'll just be like burning up. They're like like their body's moving through it. There's nothing they need to figure out, but they're crying and they're not saying anything, but their body, you get them to that space where their body knows what it needs to do to move through that. So they may not be saying anything, but they're still definitely going through it. So
Oh, wow. It's so incredible. I mean, I'm so fascinated by this human body and all of its abilities. I mean, it's capable of so much more than I think we even have brushed the surface with. And I love that. I'm like, I just am like a junkie when it comes to what more can it do and what can I learn about it, and especially the brain. So like I start, learning about the brain, and you understand that we are only using such a small fraction, like, because I forget exactly how far it would be, but if you unraveled the whole brain and it would stretch for, it was like miles, and it's like, and we're only using just a little bit of it. And there's so much more that we could be accessing, as time goes on. So I just think it's so fascinating. But um, so, like, do you do virtual work in person? Like, how would a session look?
So, first of all, I feel everyone should have access to all this stuff. So, I actually put out everything free on my YouTube channel, Matt Schmidt QH. You can go there. I have like healing playlists. I have different meditations you can do, and people have had some profound results with just those. all my classes, all my workshops, everything is free there now. So you can go there, especially for people that don't have like financial access or they just can't be in person. But my individual sessions are for people that are looking for a deep dive into healing, and it's an event. It's not anything to be like taken lightly. It's like if you want to tiptoe around your problems, that's definitely not it. Because as you can attest to. So it's about a 4 to 6 hour process. They're done both either remotely or in person. I do have a home office in Deep here, near Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then yeah, obviously all over the world. So, and I do travel to people because I get a lot of medical ones, a lot of the cancer ones. So go to people's houses or hospitals or wherever wherever I'm needed really if they can't travel. So
Mm.
it's been yeah pretty cool. So I also do retreats in the area and all kinds of different classes, workshops, and community give back stuff like I don't know, we've done like meditations in the park and just all kinds of cool stuff. So all different ways to kind of dip your toes in and see if this is kind of something you want to do and if it's right for you. So just because the stuff like on YouTube, just because it's not in person and it's not like a deep dive, you can still get great. I mean, there's still a lot of healing that comes from that. Someone contacted me the other day, and her brain tumor went away in 3 weeks just going through some of the videos, and I've never even met her. Like so,
Yes. I love that. So I'm curious. Um, can you tell us a little bit of your background? Like how did you get started in this? Where did you come from? And how did you get started with this?
I was actually a research chemist working in drug development. Worked uh, complete 180. I worked in central nervous system disorders, cancer, pain. Those are some of the areas that like I focused on. And then even with everything I knew medically, I was still having all my own issues. Before I did this the first time, I was on 14 medications. I was having grand mal seizures every week, sleeping like 2 to 3 hours a night, thinking that was normal. Like, just really struggling in life too. Like, I don't know. And then, yeah, I had my first session. Immediately stopped having seizures that day. Haven't had any since. In 2 months, I was off all 14 medications. Some I had been on for 25 years. And then started sleeping every single night. As a side effect, I lost like 60 pounds in 2 months just from stuff my mind was hanging on to. And then I found out I was supposed to be doing this work. I was like, there's no way. Like, but I knew that I had to like share this with people. And what I like about this too is like I used to see it as like so separate from like this other world I came from, but like really there's no separation. It's just like it just adds another layer, it adds another lens to what I already knew. So, you know when the stuff happened with your mom, like there is like the medical level of stuff, but like I kind of see that more as like the mechanism, how things happen. And then like if we ask why enough times, we can get to the like actual reason, the root cause of why things are happening, and then kind of like heal from the inside out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think about just even my own journey in trying to understand why what happened to her, right? And because I don't know, middle child, whatever the heck the issue is, but I am a why person. I'm a root digger. I want to get in there and dig the root out, and then eradicate it. And so I like to understand the whole of it, and the holistic part of it has been that's just innate. It's like there's got to be a natural way for whatever reason, right? I guess I came programmed like that. There's got to be a way to do this ourselves or with not alone, but to do this with people like you or people like me so that we can help other people heal. And I know that is your sole purpose of doing this is to help people heal. you you've experienced it yourself, and then you have a whole slew of clients that you have impacted, me being one of them. It's just so fascinating to me, and I'm still in the unravel portion of mine, right? Because it's still pretty fresh. It's only been a month, so I'm still in that unravel portion, and so the roller coaster ride. I'm hanging on. I'm strapped in. So, um, Matt. So if you said you have your YouTube channel, Matt Schmidt. You said QH, correct?
Yeah.
Um, channel. How else can people find you? Like,
Um,
um,
on Instagram, the Book of Faces. I have a website, Matt Schmidt QH. Matt Schmidt QH on most things if you want to connect with me. So,
And I just have one more thing for an ask is out of all of the things that you've learned and done so far, like what's one nugget of wisdom that you can share with the audience that they could take forth?
geez. Your body's ability to heal itself is greater than anyone's permitted you to believe.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I back that statement. That we do have a power within everything, right? Everything is within and we can access it. So thank you so much for being here today, Matt. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on the Secret Keepers. And I will drop everything in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Matt Schmidt, you can. I highly recommend it. You won't ever regret it. First of all, not only is he really good at what he does, but he is just a really cool guy to hang out with. So
Love you, Kareen. Thanks for having me on.
love you too, Matt.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit KareenZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.